All right, this is an interesting study, an interesting report from a great friend of the show, Derek Thompson, who always has thoughtful pieces about sort of cultural trends in society. Let's go ahead and put this piece up there on the screen. Why American teens are so sad. 4 forces are propelling the rising rates of depression among young people. I'm just going to go through this piece a little bit. So first of all, on the numbers, some people have a kind of a potential fallacy that the reason it looks like teenagers are sadder than previous generations is because they're more comfortable talking about their feelings. And so teenagers have always been moody. It's just this generation is more comfortable actually sharing that and talking about it with pollsters, for example. But there is some hard data to suggest that that is not the case. So Derek points out from 2009 to 2021, the share of American high school students who say they feel persistent feelings of sadness or hopelessness rose from 26% to 44%. That is the highest level that's ever recorded. And it's matched with increases in rates of people having to go to the hospital for suicide attempts or having to seek counseling for suicide attempts. And so there is hard data to match what is being self-reported by teenagers. This is also not equal among groups. So the chart up there showed some of the different demographic groups within teen populations and the way that they are feeling. So you have very high rates, nearly half of LGBTQ teens who say they have contemplated suicide during the pandemic. That compares with 14% of their heterosexual peers. But even if you look at every single demographic group, whether it's by race, whether it's by other identity factors, you see sadness being self-reported going up and up and up. So Derek looks into this and he posits 4 overlapping reasons why this might be the case. And I think these are pretty interesting. So number 1, he points to social media. And he has some data here to back this up. In particular, there's a new study from Cambridge University where researchers looked at 84,000 people of all ages and found social media was strongly associated with worse mental health during certain sensitive life periods, including for girls ages 11 to 13. This is backed by other research. It's actually backed by the leaked Instagram, Facebook studies about the way Instagram made young girls feel worse about themselves. And I like the way he explained it. He compared it to something like alcohol, which can be a social lubricant and, actually be beneficial in certain situations, but for a minority of users presents a real significant problem that's detrimental to their health and overall well-being. The second factor, so social media is number 1. The second factor he points to, which is again related, is sociality. So compared with their counterparts in the 2000s, today's teens are less likely to go out with their friends, less likely to get their driver's license, and less likely to play youth sports. These are all trends, by the way, that predate COVID. Yep. But obviously COVID lockdowns exacerbated both the, overdependence on social media and the lack of in real life interactions with friends, peers, playing sports, and all of those things. And so what he talks about is, social media isn't necessarily a problem if it's being like, instead of watching TV, you're on your phone or on your device. It does start to become more of an issue if it's replacing real life interactions that, are associated with positive health and mental well-being outcomes. So again, things like playing sports or, hanging out with your friends in real life.
Yeah.
The third piece that he talks about here is just bad news. The fact that there seems to be an endless spiral of sort of existentially bad news. And of course, the news media, which is invested in playing that up at every turn, whether it's, right now, looming threat of recession, and you've got a war, and you've got the climate crisis, and you've got Trump looming on the horizon, and political divisions, and all of these things, that can certainly stress parents and stress kids. And by the way, stressed parents often contribute to stressed kids, and that's the last factor that he talks about here, which is parenting. Parents are very, especially upper class parents, very concerned about their kids being able to go to the good school and get the good job and make sure that they end up on the happy side of the class divide. And that stress is being transmitted to kids in the form of, all sorts of expectations and pressure and tutoring and clubs and practices and all of this sort of stuff. And that also, the amount of time that parents spend chaperoning their kids around and taking them to all the various things that they think they have to do in order to achieve a basic sort of stable life, that has all increased over the years. So just to recap, social media, sociality, bad news, and parenting, those are the 4 things that he's sort of pointing to here, many of which were exacerbated by the pandemic.
Yeah, this is really upsetting, obviously, given what's happening. You got these teenagers, they're the future, and how you feel in your teen years is very informative for how you're gonna feel for the rest of your life. I never thought I would say this, but look, some of these bad behaviors for teenagers are down. It says, per Derek, lots of self-reported behaviors are moving in a positive direction. The 1990s, drinking and driving is down 50%, school fights are down 50%, sex before 13 is down 70%, school bullying is down. All of those are good things, but it's indicative of people not taking more risky behavior. And while it can be good on the extremes in behaviors like this, it does indicate that people are being more lonely. People are taking less risk, and that is manifesting, yes, in some of these good ways, but that these less risky inclinations and wanting to engage in this type of more sociological behavior is obviously way, way down. And there's a lot of reasons for that. Social media, obviously, the COVID lockdowns pushed things in the wrong direction. And when you look at all of those indicators, what Derek points to is that while all of it, what he's saying is that teens are not behaving badly. In fact, they're not really behaving in any way whatsoever. They're becoming a lot more lonely. And by being lonely, they're not engaging in more social activity, which is then increasing suicide. Social media obviously is a proxy for social interaction, but it's not real. It's not got the same level of connection. And so by indulging these things, and also with the rise of the parenting and the helicopter parent, with that, it's made it so that a lot of people are not experiencing life in the same way. This can sound like a boomer talking point, like I get that, but I think that there is obviously a certain level of truth to, you're growing up with a phone. Your youth and life is just gonna be significantly different from those of us who were not raised with the iPhone.
Yes, that's very true. I mean, there's a couple things to say about this. First of all, the way Derek paints it, I think, is really helpful, which he says basically, in a lot of ways, kids are being sort of kept kids longer and sheltered more. Both by, anxious parents and by the realities of more social media interaction versus real life experimental action in the real world. And so in that way, they're being kept kids longer, and yet because of their being exposed to any manner of things on the internet, in other ways, they're becoming more adult quicker.
Yeah.
And those two tensions are creating a lot of stress. So that's one thing. And then, I think the other thing is with regards to social media, like I see this in my own life. When I look less at what people are saying about me online, my mental health certainly improves. And in theory, I'm a grown up with better, coping skills to deal with those sorts of things than, a young girl or a young boy who's just sort of like going through puberty and coming of age. And also, I don't have, if somebody says something mean to me online, like I'm never gonna meet that person. I don't have to see that person ever in my life.
Sure.
Imagine you have that kind of like nasty or backbiting or petty or whatever kind of comment directed at you on social media. And then you have to show up and see that person in real life at your high school every day. That sucks. That would stress me out. That definitely would contribute to, an anxiety-producing situation. So I think it's really important that we dig into these trends because, look, obviously, a healthy society, we've always aspired to, it's going to be better for the next generation. They're going to do better than their parents. That's kind of the definition of like societal progress. And there's just one more metric where that seems to not be the case, where we no longer have this expectation that our kids are going to live a better life than we did. And that's a profound indictment of the values and policy choices of our country.
I think that's right.
Cable news is ripping us apart, dividing the country, making it impossible to function as a society, and making it impossible to know just what is true and what is false. But the good news is they are failing and they know it.
That is why we're building something new, a new mainstream, a healthier one, something more trustworthy, something that we are going to need in one of the most pivotal times in American history. We are building up here for the midterms, for the upcoming presidential election, but we need your help. So if you can help us out by becoming a premium member today at breakingpoints.com, we're trying to change America for the better and the entire world.
So what are you waiting for, guys? Go to breakingpoints.com and sign up and help us build a new mainstream.